Today we're going to learn about first and second declension adjectives. And I like to call these three-part adjectives as well. And that's because when you're given the adjective, you're given three parts. Here we have malus, mala, malum, which is the adjective in Latin for evil. And the three parts they give you are on the left here in blue, you have the masculine. In the middle, in pink, you have the feminine. And on the right, you have the neuter. And each of these are in the nominative case, and they will all decline. And they will decline in the following declensions. The masculine, malus, will go in the second declension masculine, which you already know. So it'll be malus, mali, malo, malum, malo, mali, malorum, malis, malos, malis. Mala will be in the first declension, so it'll be mala, malai, malai, malam, mala, malai, malarum, malis, mala, malis. And finally, malum will be in the second declension neuter, so it'll be malum, mali, malo, malum, malo, mala, malorum, malis, mala, malis. Now, when we're declining these, in each of those declensions, you always want to find the stem. And for adjectives, you're going to go to the feminine to find the stem. You go to the feminine form, which is always in the middle. You drop off that A, and that gives you the stem, M-A-L. And the reason we always go to the feminine is because there are adjectives that aren't as regular as malus, mala, malum. For example, pulcher, pulchra, pulchrum. That nominative masculine singular on the left is a little irregular. It's kind of like ager, which we've already learned, or puer. However, if you go to the feminine to get the stem and drop off the feminine, you can always use this stem for all of your endings, so that simplifies things. So here is the full declension chart for malus, mala, malum. Note that malus, our masculine form of the adjective, takes the second declension masculine, and you know all of these endings. Mala, the feminine form, takes the first declension. Once again, you know all of these endings. And malum, the neuter form, takes the second declension neuter. Also, endings you're familiar with. You should already have all of these endings memorized. If not, you really need to put about 20 minutes a night into working on them. Without these endings, everything else will be much harder. Now that we've seen how to form our adjectives, which is actually the simpler part of this lesson, we have to talk about the trickier part, which is noun-adjective agreement. And in Latin, adjectives must agree with the nouns they modify in three ways. And those ways are in case, so they have to be in the same case, whether it be nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, or ablative. Number, they have to be either singular or plural, depending on what number the noun is. And gender, they must be the same gender as the noun they modify, whether it be masculine, feminine, or neuter. So let's see this in action. Let's take the noun puerorum. We're going to go through some steps to find the adjective that agrees with puerorum. So, the first thing you're going to ask yourself is what is the gender, the case, and the number of puerorum. When you look at this, puerorum, the noun puer in Latin, is masculine, and that's something you just have to memorize. The case, because of that orum ending, is genitive, and once again, because of that orum ending, it's genitive plural. So now that we're armed with this information, let's make our boy evil. So we're going to find the correct form of malus, mala, malum that goes with puerorum. So, as we said, puerorum is masculine. So we're going to go to this first part of the adjective, malus, the masculine form, and it falls under the second declension. So, we also know that we need the genitive plural of this, our ending being orum. So, put these two together, and you have puerorum malorum, of the evil boys. You could also have malorum puerorum. In Latin, there's no word order for what goes first, the adjective or the noun. Now, I know that looks like that's simply putting the same ending on the adjective as is on the noun, but they're not all this easy, and in time they'll get even harder. So let's look at a case where it's not so. Let's look at agricolam instead, and go over the same steps. So, we ask ourselves, what gender, case, and number is agricolam? We know that the noun agricola, agricolae, is masculine. Once again, this is something we memorize. We also know that ending makes it accusative and singular. So let's make him evil. Once again, we go to that first part of our adjective because that is the masculine form. And we need the accusative singular of malus. Malus declines in the second declension, so when you go down, the second declension accusative singular ending is So we have malum. So our evil farmer as the direct object is our agricolam malum, or as we said, because there's no true Latin word order, it could be the malum agricolam. So the best way to learn these is to practice, and here we have 4 examples. What I'd like you to do, on the very left, next to these numbers, you have 4 Latin nouns. Next to them, in parentheses, are the 3 parts of a Latin adjective. What you need to do is ask yourself the 3 questions. What gender, case, and number is this noun? And then put the proper adjective with it. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on these. It would be a good idea to pause this so you have time to work at your own pace. Alright, let's begin to go over these. So first we look at puelas, and we ask ourselves, what gender, case, and number is it? Puela is, of course, a feminine noun, something that you have to memorize. And that as ending makes it accusative plural. So that means we're going to our second part, the feminine, amica. It declines in the first declension. What's our first declension accusative plural ending? As. So it gives us puelas amicas, the friendly girls, as the direct object. Moving down to saxum, we ask ourselves what gender, case, and number is saxum. Saxum is, of course, neuter, another thing that we memorize. Because it's neuter, we go to that third principal part, magnum, and we ask ourselves what case and number is saxum. Now saxum can be either nominative or accusative singular, but it doesn't matter either way because the nominative or accusative of the adjective magnum is also magnum. Saxum, magnum. Number 3, legato. Same questions. We ask ourselves what gender, case, and number is legato. The noun legatus in Latin is masculine. So we're going to use that first principal part of the adjective. We know that O endings either dative or ablative singular, so we're going to add the dative or ablative singular ending to ferus here. And that gives us legato fero. These first 3 are some of the easier examples. Note that the ending of the noun and the adjective are similar. And as I said before, in the beginning this will happen a lot. But as we learn more declensions, this will become less and less frequent, so don't be fooled. You have to go through these steps every time. And this last one's a great example of why. So here we have nauta, with a macron over the A. Ask yourself the same questions. What gender, case, and number is nauta? Nauta is, of course, masculine. So we're going to use malus, the masculine form of the adjective. Nauta, with that A ending, is also ablative singular. So we ask ourselves, malus. In the second declension masculine, what ending is the ablative singular? And of course it is malo. So our nauta malo is our evil sailor as the object of a preposition. Now let's talk about our takeaways for the lesson. You should already know how to decline all parts of the adjective because you know your first declension and your second declension masculine and neuter endings. These you should already have memorized. What you need to remember is that these adjectives are 3-part adjectives. The first part, malus, is the masculine, and you'll decline that in the second declension masculine. The second part, malo, is the feminine form, and you're going to decline that in the first declension. And the third form, malum, is the neuter form, and that will be in the second declension neuter. Also remember, when you're getting your stem for 3-part adjectives, you always go to the feminine form and drop the A. The other big thing that you need to know is how to do your noun-adjective agreement. And remember the steps for this. The first, of course, is to find your gender, case, and number, because these are the 3 ways that your adjective has to agree with your noun. After you've got that down, you need to go to the principal part that corresponds with the gender of your noun. So if your noun's masculine, you have to use the first principal part. If your noun's feminine, you use the second principal part. If your noun's neuter, use the third principal part. Once you know that, you put the proper case ending on it for the number and the case.